It's always been one-sided. The only thing you've ever seen is that picture, that poor pitiful picture of him in that prison garb. Poor pitiful little black boy railroaded by the white people. You know, and they're trying to make it race, and it wasn't.
Going back to, you were talking about this Mr. Pratt man. Can you talk about his experience of working that case?
Yeah, and he told me when he went up to that elderly black gentleman, and he said, who could have been mean enough to have done this? And he said, the man automatically said, George Stinny. And that's when he went down to the Stinny house. And he said that he heard them discussing it outside the open window. And that the relative, which I believe now was his stepbrother, half-brother, Johnny, he questioned both of them. They took them in, and he said, we put one upstairs and one downstairs. And he said they were not together. We questioned them both. George Stinny confessed and told us exactly what happened. The stepbrother said that he gave them the same story that George told them because George had already told him what he had done. And he said, can you show me the murder weapon? And he said, yes. He said, he led me to, and it wasn't a creek or a pond or a ditch, it was sort of like a low end of the field near where the bodies were found, and he walked out and reached down twice, and on the second time he reached down, he pulled up the iron spike and gave it to him. And he told me, he looked me dead in my eye, and he said, don't ever believe that that boy didn't kill your aunt, because from the time I became involved, that whole chain of events, there was not one link broken. It all fell right into place.
And what do you make of some of these people who are now trying to bring this case back to light? Said he was, you know, this little boy was made to admit to a crime he didn't commit by... He
had ample time to tell the truth if he were coerced, because we have talked to people. There's a paper, an article in one of the older newspapers where Sheriff Gamble gave him plenty of time, and Mr. Pratt was with him at the penitentiary, and we'll give you a copy of that. And it says, George, do you know why you're here? And he says, yes. And I'll show you. And he said, did you commit this crime? And he said, yes, sir. He said, did anybody make you say anything that you didn't want to say? And he said, no, sir. And he said, well, you know you're about to die. And he said, yes, sir. And he said, he told him, goodbye, George. And he said, goodbye, Sheriff. So he had ample time there. We've talked to a man that got in touch with us from Columbia, Mr. Jim Kelly, and I forgot to call him yesterday. He called and talked to Carolyn first. He was interviewed. He saw the interview, I guess, of you on the Columbia station. And he called and told us that he was the son of the chaplain. His daddy was the chaplain at the time George was at the state penitentiary. And he said that there was a black chaplain and himself, and they both counseled with George. And he said, my daddy said that he was 100% sure that George murdered those children. And he said that my dad, he also said that he had gotten one black boy off of death row because he believed in his innocence. And he said it was not racial, that he certainly, his dad said that he was convinced that he had done it. So, you know, it's not that we believe hearsay of what we grew up with all these years. We've done our research. We've talked to people that know that we're actually there. The people that read these articles in the newspaper don't know the whole truth. They don't know what we've discovered and what we grew up with. My grandparents and my mom and my aunt and uncle, they never talked about it. We didn't talk about it on a daily basis, but it was just something that happened in our family. And I believe that he did it completely, 100% sure that he did it. I think that he was punished, and like Mr. Ridgway said back then in 1944, they keep saying that he was young. He was 3 months short of being 15. Some people in 1944 were married at 15 and were working full-time jobs. So I think he knew exactly what he was doing, and I think that he was just a mean person. And he had a short temper, and it just got out of hand, and he killed him.
Did your mother ever talk about the Stinny family or what she knew about this boy, and what did she say about your aunt? Like, how did she describe or talk about her?
She was 10 years younger than my mom. She was the baby sister, and she was the baby of the family. And it was just terrible. Mom really never did dwell on it, about missing her and all. They had a hard life anyway. They had a 6-month-old baby that died with heart disease. Betty June was murdered, and our uncle was killed in the Korean War. So my granddaddy and grandmama had a bad life, a sad life with their children. So they just didn't ever talk about it. Granddaddy was at the penitentiary when he was put to death, and our uncle, he said that he wasn't proud of it, but he thought that he needed to get what he had done to his baby. He needed to die and not be.
Did he ever describe what it was like? Because when you read some articles, some people say that he was so little they had to have him sit. He had to sit on books, and the mask came off and all that. What do you mean?
No, he never said. He never really. I don't ever remember him saying anything about it, other than that it needed to have been done. And as far as the Bible, him sitting on the Bible, Carolyn can tell you that on the way to the penitentiary, the sheriff asked him if he wanted anything, and he told him a Bible. So he stopped at a convenience store and went in and was talking to the clerk, and he came out and gave him a pocket Bible. And now they have him sitting on it. And so that's the Bible that he had.
And you said this Mr. Pratt, like, what was his first name again?
S.J. Pratt.
S.J. Pratt.
Mm-hmm.
And so how does he go from being in Manning to Berkeley County?
I don't know how he ended up there. I don't know. He died in Moncks Corner.
Okay.
And
Was he a patrolman at one time?
he was in law enforcement his whole life. Jimmy, my son, could probably tell you his record, but and what he did, but he was awarded.
Your husband used to own the
Clarkley Barbershop.
Wow.
And that's how he met Mr. Pratt. And
He came in for a haircut, I guess, one day.
well, he cut his hair all the time. Every time it was cut. And then my son.
And how did y'all make the connection that?
It was after the movie and the book came out, and they were discussing it, somebody in the barbershop that day, and my husband happened to say, well, that was my wife's aunt. And then Mr. Pratt said, well, I was one of the arresting officers in that case. And that's when he came to me. He sought me out to tell me that. He even signed that book, and I can't find the book. I loaned it to somebody, but he put in there, that he signed it. But it's just not that we believe hearsay. These people lived it.